We are live and on time, ready to roll and cover all things. Does running destroy strength gains? Yeah, does running destroy strength gains? Does running destroy strength gains? It's an interesting discussion because there's some research. I think when people are thinking through the initial research is, okay, there's some evidence that doing endurance-based training can actually improve hypertrophy. But long term, can that actually happen? Is that accurate? And I wanted to provide on the YouTubers, all the YouTubers, we're going to go into a really cool study from July of this current year about lean body weight predicting max strength. And essentially, like, guess what? The more muscle mass you have, the stronger you are. So if you've got bigger muscles, you're probably going to be freaking stronger. So then we've got to get into some of the aspects around running. And does it indeed destroy your strength gains? Or is that just all also dependent upon how we define strength gains and how we define strength in general? So before that, if you're on the YouTube stream, we've got everybody up on that screen as far as who is getting the free shirt that we give away in every full-length video on Garage Strength's YouTube channel. And this week, Frank Luanda, at Frank Luanda, the explosive athletes actually squat like this. Okay, Frank, you just won our free shirt. And you see on the screen, I want that shirt. You got that shirt. All for you, Frank. Then Rage in Truths also won that free shirt from the best exercise for upper back size and strength, where I'm doing the double back pose flex. That was also, I just read something from the chat and I just brought that over. That also, Rage in Truths, you won the free shirt. And hold on a second, guys, because I'm going to teach you how you can actually claim that free shirt. And then finally, SK24, best workout split to stay strong for football. On that video, you commented SK24. You also won the free Swole shirt. And then all you have to do is, I'm looking at, hey, Dane, any chance you've been watching the Rugby World Cup? Yes, I have been, actually. My sons are for some reason into rugby right now, and I think it has something to do with one of their video games. So all you guys have to do is email support@garagestrength.com that you won the giveaway. Provide a screenshot of your YouTube studio to prove that it's you. You can blank out the money that you're earning if you are earning money. We just need to verify that it is indeed Frank Luanda, Rage in Truth, and SK24. You guys all won those sweet Swole shirts available. Now, I want to get into a couple of questions, and we've got some banger questions that I wanted to go over. A couple of them I think deserve a decent amount of time, so I wanted to cover a couple of those key factors. Just notice that this might be, oh no, that's actually, yeah, that's something else. So I want to go over a couple of those big questions and then dive deep into them, and then use one of the research papers that I've just been perusing lately around muscle mass and muscle size is actually, guess what, a very good predictor for how strong you are, which is also why men are stronger than women. Now, only because their muscles tend to be larger, not their brains, but their muscles. Now, at user JH5KZ6TS3B, strength training for rugby videos. So this is going into the question that we just got from Rugby for Life. Thanks for this. I have a question though. Why would running 5 to 6 miles be detrimental to absolute strength if you refuel yourself with the calories you lost? Surely there would not be a problem, or am I wrong here? Thanks. So what I would say to this is 5 to 6 miles is a decent run, especially for somebody who is a rugby player. And the other aspect here is, if we're looking at a sport like rugby and we start to understand, like, if we have an individual who is bigger, who's stronger, who is faster, and who's more explosive, how much work do they need to do endurance-wise, to just sustain themselves so that later on in the game, let's say they're 80% of the way through the competition, they can operate at like 90%. And is it necessary to go run 5 or 6 miles, or is it going to be more beneficial for that individual to focus on the endurance specific to their sport, doing work on the field, and then also potentially more resistance-based training so that they can be stronger, faster, more explosive. And also, we also need to comprehend that as far as rugby is concerned, I think it's just important to analyze that the main goal is that we want our rugby players to be as explosive as possible. And if we look at it and say, okay, if you run 2 to 3 miles, right? If we do a long, slow distance work at 2 to 3 miles versus doing 5 to 6 miles, what if we had 2 days a week where we just go out for 2 to 3 mile clips versus one day where we have a 230 pound hooker doing, 6 mile run, and he's totally just toast for the next 2 to 3 days. And that's what would end up, I believe, would happen, would be that individual, if they run 6 miles, they're going to be sore in their ankles, their knees, and probably a little bit in their hips. Now, does that mean that they should never do long, slow distance? No, I think that individual could benefit more probably from the assault bike or something like that, twice a week, something that's low impact to just get their heart rate up. Now, so I don't think 5 to 6 miles is necessary for them to achieve the endurance that they would need to sustain themselves through the entire game. Okay. I think you have to, as a coach, look at the trade-offs and say, okay, how much work do we need to do endurance-wise for these individuals to sustain themselves long-term through their competition? Now, for a wrestler might see a pretty substantial amount of benefit if they would go for a 5 to 6 mile run once a week, and then maybe like a 3 to 4 mile run another day a week, and then the rest of the time they're doing sprint work and lifting. Like, that's probably going to be a pretty close scenario to what we would want done. We just need to be aware that the level of endurance should be what we're using to predict or to institute the strategy of endurance-based training. And I also would argue, like, if you have athletes who are extremely fast and extremely explosive and you're playing a team, let's say the extremely fast, extremely strong, extremely explosive athletes on this rugby team are playing another team, and the opposing team is smaller, has better endurance, but your team is more explosive, stronger, and doesn't have as good of endurance, you likely will be dominating them so much so that by the end of the game, it's not going to be an issue. Like, you're going to have enough endurance from your sport-specific work to handle that. Now, in a sport like wrestling, where endurance is going to play a much bigger role, or a sport like boxing, where conditioning is king, I think that's going to be a different discussion. And I think that's just got to be like the lens that we look through it for each specific sport. And then you can come up with those judgments as a coach based off of your past experience. So 5 to 6 miles can be detrimental. Like, I'm thinking about a back squat, right? If I'm running 5 to 6 miles in one run, I'm probably going to have to be able to run twice a week. Okay. At least twice a week. So to get to the point where I can run 6 miles at one clip, I probably will have to run twice a week for 4 to 6 weeks to build up to that. The area that you'll see wane a little bit would be like if I'm trying to push a back squat and I'm running 3 miles one day and then 6 miles on another day. You've got to plan that back squat session where you're not going to have your legs be fatigued at all from your long run. And you can do that. It is possible. It was 100% possible. You just have to do it accurately and creatively. And I think that just has to be addressed. KLY 1026, KLY 1026. So Steve, what's up? I see you in there. Yeah, it does depend on how far you run. 100%. Let's see. Keith just commented, heard for a marathon coach saying you shouldn't run distance if you are above around 80 kilos. That's pretty light. That is a very light body weight. Now, I think you can still test yourself to run a marathon, even if you are above that. So one of the big factors, this goes to KLY 1026, is he asked, Dane, what marathon are you running? So I signed up for the Philadelphia Marathon. That'll be the third week in November. I'll be in Estonia November, I think 11th, and then I basically fly home, and then I would run like 5 days later, 6 days later. So one of those factors for me, I signed up for the Philly Marathon. It's about an hour from where I live. It's also supposed to be a fairly good first marathon to run. It's pretty flat, and it should be good weather, ideally. So last week I had my first like really long run. I went around 15.6 to 16 miles, somewhere in there. My Apple Watch died a couple times, but he's right. Fiji used 7 guys over 6 feet tall. Yeah. I'm actually even thinking through using the Fiji scenario. They were actually in my tower at the Olympics, so I would see them every single day in their size. Anyway, going back to my distance running, I did sign up for the Philadelphia Marathon. Started running these long clips, almost 16 miles this past weekend. I'm going to try and get out Saturday around 5:15 in the morning, and I want to try to see if I can get like 17 to 18 because I had quite a confidence boost from this past weekend's run. And I feel like if I'm able to get up to like a 20-mile run before the marathon, I'm going to feel very, very confident that I can get it done. I did a pretty good job planning out my nutrition for the run, even planning out my nutrition before the run, and I felt like that was a good test, and it was even raining for like 3/4 of my run, and it was cold, so I was pretty happy about it. What if your football team, so this is coming from School Views, excuse me. Have you seen the current world's strongest man was previously a marathon runner? Really? I did not know that, and I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure Fiji has anyone who's a smaller dude. They're not as big as the Samoans, but they're big. Okay, going back to these questions. I didn't put this up. Sorry, guys. There we go. What if your team is 1-5? Would the focus change based on the outlook for the current season? Asking for a friend. I feel like this is like somebody who might be playing for the Patriots right now. They're terrible, but I would say that would change the focus. I would look at that like, so ideally when we're talking about, and this is a comment from our in-season football video where we broke down the periodization around in-season football training, and I think that if you look at how athletes or how football teams train, right? If they're training in season and you're playing well. Let's say you're 5-1, to use the opposite of the School Views question. If you're 5-1, right? You want to make it so that every single week your team is at the top of their game when they're going in to compete. Okay, you want to make sure that if they're playing another team that's 5-1, they're fresh and they're ready to roll. And in that case, I would say they should lift on a Saturday. If it's a high school team, they would lift on a Saturday, and they'd probably lift light on a Monday, and then they'd be good with their training. They'd be doing all field-specific work after that. Now, being 1-5, it's tough because especially at the high school level, a lot of you guys are playing multiple different sports. So at that point, it's like, all right, well, I need to build up for this other sport that I'm playing. I also want to, make sure that if I go to any type of off-season combines, I'm in really good shape because right now my team's not playing that well. Now, the other thing that we have to remember is that in a field sport like football, you can still get views from coaches if you're playing well on a bad team. If you're making good plays and you're shedding blocks and you're getting double teamed and you're a savage, you can still get offers on a bad team. It's not as likely, but you can do it. So you also have to look at like, what games can I really pop off and play really well? So you don't want to be beating yourself up in the weight room, even if you are 1-5. Okay. So I think that that's something that you just got to keep in mind, that like it can hurt your ability to be recruited. Now, with that being said, you just got to look at it and say, okay, these teams are going to be really good. These teams aren't as good. And if I'm good enough, I can train 2 to 3 days a week and uphold some good training stability so that I can then still perform well and increase my overall physical form. Going back to it, when you're doing in-season training for football, for soccer, for any sport like that that's a team, lacrosse, you want to make sure that you're setting it up so you're periodized throughout the week, so that 2 days out you're not really doing anything, maybe a little bit of light plyometrics, and that would be it. Hope that helps there. Next question. This is going to be from Solidarity. This is the one that I thought we could really go into a little bit deeper was, what would be, okay, if you could redesign the NFL Combine with drills or other measurables, what would you want to use? So lifts, drills, other measurables. So if we look at the NFL Combine right now, right, they've got the 40, they've got the 3-cone or the L drill, whatever you want to call it, 3-cone or L drill, the shuttle, the vert, the broad jump, the bench press, I think that's pretty much it if I remember off the top of my head. Broad jump, vertical, shuttle, L, bench, and 40. Okay, so those are the standard tests that they use at the Combine. Then the other things that they use, which a lot of people don't realize, is that they also will use a lot of field-specific drills. So they'll do very specific drills for the running backs, very specific drills for wide receivers, very specific drills for the linemen. And so they'll put them through these drill series that coaches put them through, and then they analyze their movement based off of that. So now you're looking at, there's these specific lifts or exercises per se. Then there's these specific drills that they're using to evaluate. And then finally, they're doing things that are like height, body weight, length of arms. They'll use the mental tests as well to see as far as how they react to certain scenarios. And then they've got game tape. Okay, so that's how they're setting up, is this player worth the investment? And then they'll look at it and they'll say, okay, first 3 or 4 rounds, first 3 rounds especially, these athletes, the first 3 rounds, like they're worth the investment. They can come in and make an impact. Rounds 4 or 5, these are guys we can take flyers on that will invest a little bit of time and money. Okay, so we'll put a little bit of money into them. We'll put a little bit of time into them, and hopefully by the end of the second year, they're starting. Okay, and then you get the later round guys. I'm just seeing this, that can confirm. Yeah, so Mitchell Hooper ran a marathon. That's crazy. I did not know that. How did I not know? But fortunately, you guys are such an awesome community here on YouTube that you got me to recognize that Mitchell Hooper ran a marathon and is now the world's strongest man. And that is absolutely insane. It also shows that you can recover. You can be a distance-based athlete and get into strength-based work. Now, if he's running a marathon and then comes back and executes, wins the world's strongest man, he's clearly got great genetics as well. But getting back to the NFL Combine discussion, I think that round 6, round 7, those guys are the guys that you hopefully pop off. I think right now the D2, there was a D2 running back. I want to say, who is he playing for? Well, Pacheco, he's a starting running back for the Chiefs. He's a 7th round draft pick out of Rutgers, and now he's a starter, right? The dude, I want to say he might be with the Browns. I forget where he's at, where he was the D2 running back, like the all-time leading rusher from Notre Dame in Division II, not the Notre Dame, and now he's in the league. And I think that, those are the guys that get to the 6th, 7th round, and then hopefully they turn into the next Tom Brady, right? But I think the interesting part here is if you're looking at specific tests, okay, what's the vertical, what's the broad jump? That's going to show us like how twitchy are these guys. The only problem I have is that they're both done bilaterally, okay? So I would potentially argue like, how can we get a unilateral test in there? And actually have the athlete do it on both sides. Is there something that we could do, like a drop into a single leg bound, drop off of a 12-inch box into a single leg bound from the right leg and the left leg? That gets, a little quirky, a little interesting. And if we could do it on force plates on turf, that would make it cool. And you can still land in a bilateral position. That would be something I would be interested in. I would keep the vertical, I would probably keep the vertical, and then I would change the bound into a depth drop into a unilateral bound and measure both sides, because now we're going to be able to see a little bit of stability issues potentially. I know a lot of people be like, oh, the 40 is stupid. You never run 40 yards in a game. That's lame. Dude, get over that argument. It's a terrible argument because one thing that they do now is they break the 40 into 10s, 15, 20, 30, 40. Okay? So they can see how well you accelerate, how soon you get to top end speed, how well you hold that. And it's not about the 40 yards, really. It's about how they're breaking down your start, how they're breaking down the first 5, 10, 15 yards. Like, yes, the 40 also matters, especially for wide receivers, safeties, corners, stuff like that. And that's another factor, too, is like they do really good drills with the corners. I think the corners, a lot of the D-backs could have tests that are testing them as they're moving backwards. I think that's another lacking area that a lift or a movement pattern could help NFL scouts figuring out, like, how well is this guy moving backwards. I think the shuttle is a really, really good test. I actually like the 3-cone. Some people don't like it. I actually think the 3-cone is really, really unique. It's a really interesting movement that you get to see how well they cut specific areas. Oh, we just got that. If you guys are in the YouTube chat, you got a comment on the survey or the poll that was just put up. How long is my marathon going to take? You guys got a comment on that. Now with the 3-cone, with the shuttle, the one thing I would bring up is somebody like Micah Parsons. Go back and watch the old film. Like, dude, he slipped on the shuttle like 4 times. Now he did his because I believe it was because of COVID. He had to do his at Penn State. He never got to go to the actual combine, if I remember correctly. There was issues with his shoes potentially, and it's like, did that matter? Like, did that drop him down to when he get drafted like 11th? Like, no. Everybody knew he was a savage. Everybody knew he was going to be a top 15 pick. So I think that it's just being aware that stuff can happen. So I would say that the 3-cone and the shuttle, honestly, I like them. I like the 40 as well. Doesn't finish. Wasn't there an option? Dude, Keist, you are such a little troll. You are such a troll, Keist. So the next ones that we haven't talked about would be the bench press, right? The bench press is essentially the analysis of strength. I would argue, like, okay, I've heard some guys tell me, well, it shows you if the guy's been training. If he gets a bench press for 0 reps or 2 reps, like, they haven't been doing their work. Okay, anybody, even the wide receivers. I think Randy Moss might have even benched 225 for like 8 or 9 or something. It's like, you should be able to do that, right? We should actually look up Randy Moss's bench press. He probably got less than that, and I just made that up off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure he did get like 7. And I could be wrong, but let's look up Randy Moss's test scores for the bench press when he did the combine. Now, so we got the vertical. We're going to keep that in. We're going to do the depth drop into single leg bound. We're going to keep the 40. We're going to keep the shuttle. We're going to keep the L-cone. If I would change one thing specifically, I would move the bench press, or I would keep the bench where it is because we'll keep it as a strength test. I would do something like, and this is going to be crazy. People are going to be like, oh my God, single leg squats with like specific weights. So you got 225. I would say like running backs, specialty guys can do 225. Linemen have to do like 275, and they have to do 5 reps basically as quickly as they can on force plates. I think that would be an interesting test. I think the problem with like a back squat would be a phenomenal test of overall strength. What's their absolute strength levels? I would be concerned that depth would be a problem. I would be concerned that somebody could hurt their back. That could be another problem, especially if they're going for a max, like 5 rep max or something like that. So those are some other areas. We also have to remember that these scouts are also paying attention to social media. They're talking to the strength coaches that these kids went to high school or college, so they know how strong they are going to be from a general perspective. But if I was going to change the NFL Combine, it'd be a single leg bound off of a depth drop on each leg. So like a 10-inch depth drop into a single leg bound, land bilaterally. We'd still have the vert, still have the 40, still have the shuttle, still have the 3-cone. And then I would do an interesting test like the single leg squat. And, just recognizing that like you could do a back squat, but I would be slightly concerned. I hope that sort of clarifies it. And I just think for everybody out there to also remember, there's so much money into testing these athletes and to looking at how quickly they can react mentally. They're looking at things like their background. Have they had any criminal issues? What are their arm lengths, their foot lengths? Like, they're testing absolutely everything. I think they could maybe do a better job, but they also spend a lot of money on it because it's a big investment. It's a huge investment. Think about, like, you're making an investment into something and you're going to pay this something. I'm going to put $2 million on this person per year in hopes that we get a return over $2 million. And it's also really hard to quantify that. It's very challenging to quantify that return. Jason is even on his Wikipedia or that's says NA. That's interesting. I mean, recently too, like Deion Sanders even posted a video recently. He's like 55 and he just did 225 for like 15. Okay. Now I hope that helps. That was from Solidarity. I like that question though. Those are fun theoretical questions that you can use that make you think a little bit more. What would my combine be? Perfect combine. Honestly, I think it'd be cool if you could do like a power clean or something, but people would just complain. Like, I mean, it'd be even neat. Like, yo, let's go on force plates and test a power clean. And if you've never done a power clean, you can do a trap bar jump. And if you do a trap bar jump, well, then we can see what that force output looks like on the actual force plates. I think that that would also just be something of value. Also, if you guys watch like Christian McCaffrey when he was in the combine, ran the shuttle, unbelievable speed and technique. Now, here's where I wanted to go before we get into all of the questions, because you guys are freaking putting awesome questions that I do want to get to. I want to show you guys this here. Okay, so if you're looking at our screen up on YouTube, I've got the screen share of this research paper. Okay, and I just wanted to quickly go through this because there's always this discussion over like, does muscle mass, and this is where this could in theory lead to the topic of endurance-based training is always going to go back to, so over here, right there. So in this study that you're looking at on YouTube, Instagrammers, you can go over to YouTube so you can check it out. But in this study, we're going to see that the size of muscle is a very, 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 very good predictor of absolute strength. Okay. And that might sound so simple to some people, but a lot of people will say, well, bodybuilders have these big hulking muscles, but they're not actually strong. False. They are really strong, but they might not be as strong as powerlifters or as weightlifters. But weightlifters might have as big of quads or as big of backs, right? So we've got to think through that lens. Anyway, going back to the actual discussion is then endurance-based training for specific sports needs to be at a level that will transfer to the specific sport so that you can uphold, that's your engine training, so you can uphold the requisite amount of power output, explosivity, and speed, right? There comes a point where that seesaw might start to dip more towards endurance-based training, and we have to find what's the minimal amount of endurance that we can do to make sure that we can balance that seesaw so that this person's as strong and as explosive as possible, but also has that endurance. And if we can balance that, right? So now we can go into deeper analysis of, look at Kelvin Kiptum, look at Eliud Kipchoge, the Galen Rupp, the best marathoners in the world, right? They're not super hypertrophic individuals. They're strong. Their bone density is probably crazy. Their tendon strength is probably crazy. They're not genuinely like these big hulking hypertrophic people. Now, I also know they're not doing a ton of resistance-based training, but my argument would be distance running is not conducive. It is not conducive to have a lot of hypertrophy and be a very good distance runner, because you spend a lot of energy towards maintaining that muscle mass while you're running and oxygenating those muscles so that you can actually execute the run. Okay. So based off this paper that right here, okay, so this paper is telling us that, they essentially wanted to look at maximal strength, Okay, they wanted to look at maximal strength and body comp. Okay, body composition. So those were the key factors. And then what they ended up doing is they were testing things. They had 34 power lifters that were anywhere from 28 to 21 to 35 years old. Okay, classic power lifters. They took them through DEXA scans and they analyzed them for over a year. They had 13 other subjects that completed 1 yearly follow-up, and they paired all these and looked at different aspects of body comp and maximal strength measurements. Okay, so they ended up looking at things like bone mineral content. Okay, BMC, bone mineral content, bone mineral density. Okay, how dense are their bones? And then they were looking at other factors, lean body weight here. Okay, relative lean body weight. So they were starting to look at like basically lean body weight, the size of their muscle. And then what they ended up finding was between measures 2 and 3, okay, or here they found max strength can be a really good predictor of bone mineral content and bone mineral density. So if you have high levels of max strength, you likely have very, very dense bones, okay, which is why a lot of people will say, a lot of doctors will say, you need to do resistance-based training to increase bone density, to prevent osteoporosis, things like that, right? Okay. And then lean body weight is used as the main predictor of max strength. So muscle mass is the lean body weight. That's the main predictor for max strength. So their totals and their performance in powerlifting were almost directly linked to the amount of lean body weight that they have. How much muscle did they actually have? And then that was a direct link to bone mineral content and bone mineral density. And so if we know that, then going back to our argument around distance training and endurance-based work, you need to find where's that happy medium for each individual so that the endurance that we're doing has a minimal impact on their hypertrophy. Now, if you're training somebody who is a 5,000 meter runner, well, now that scale is going to drop a little bit and the endurance scale goes up. And you've just got to play that game and analyze it and analyze and test each athlete. But looking at like soccer, they might have to have, they're running 7, 8, 9 kilometers sometimes in a game. So their endurance scale is going to be a little bit higher. They still have to be really explosive too, though. So soccer players might have a little bit higher endurance scale. Rugby players might be a little bit lower, and football players might be a little bit lower on that endurance scale relative to absolute strength. And so you've got to look through that as you're making these decisions in your training and as you're trying to set this stuff up. And that's like one of the big things that I've been working through in myself, prepping for my marathon, but then also one of those factors that, I'm the strength and conditioning coach for South Dakota State's wrestling team. Last year we had a guy in the final, another All-American, had 3 dudes lose in the blood round. One thing that we've got to do is this wrestler, is their specific problem related to endurance, or is their specific problem related to strength? And if we can analyze that from that top-down view, then we can set up their programming specific to that issue. And that's what we're doing in Peak Strength, our app with weightlifting. Is we're analyzing 2 to 3 specific problems, and then you have these trees that your programming rolls off of. Same thing with Peak Strength with wrestling. It's playing that game and analyzing those key performance indicators to optimize their overall performance, obviously. Okay, so let's get to these questions because you guys got a ton in here. Have you seen Ryan Krauser benching with bands from the top of the rig? What are your thoughts? I think that's similar to pad benching. I have seen it with him benching with the bands from the top. It's essentially going to make it the lockout's going to be a little bit tougher. So I think it's fine. I haven't done a lot of it, but we've talked about it here at Garage Strength, testing that out. Let's see. Hello, Dane. Big fan here in Botswana. What's up in Botswana and in Africa? And I'm an athlete, national record holder of the under 18, and my dream is to come there and learn with you guys. That's from Shepo Person. Are you a thrower? Or are you what type of athlete are you? Fried Rice Boy. How much weight can you increase per week on absolute strength program? Okay, so this is a question like. He's saying 3 sets of 5 at 70%. Could the next week be equal or greater to 3 by 5 at 75%? Dude, first of all, this is where peak strength is so effective. Okay. This is where we do such a good job because there's a history in there around what your weights are, and that's informing the program, and the program is being informed based off of our algorithms that we use here on site with our on-site athletes. So it's like we're taking these things and making it a lot easier for you to execute. I was just reaching for my mouse. So I would just keep that in mind as far as all that stuff is concerned when you're thinking through that lens of how much weight you can increase. But then I think the easiest thing is when you first get into lifting, go like 4 months of just every time that you have a successful set, put 5 pounds on each side. And then if you do that for like a month or two and you're feeling pretty good, like most of your sets you're successful, try it for like a week or two when you put 10 pounds. Like, dude, it's easy to just do that. And then you can play around with, all right, when I add 5 pounds, this happens. When I add 10 pounds at this weight, this happens. And then you just get used to that progressive overload, right? Like that's what you're getting used to. Adam, I see, commented, powerlifted for years, but did not do long distance cardio, joined Army after a few months of running, had greatly diminished leg mass and substantial loss of strength from the frequent running we did. Yeah, I would bet I can tell you right now, I back squatted 165 last week and it felt like it was 220. It felt like it was so freaking heavy. Now I'm putting in close to 45 miles a week. That's where I think it's like if you're running like 5 to 10 miles, you might be able to maintain it. I think if you're running 5 to 10 miles a week, I think after that, I think it ends up being pretty tough. That's where I would say get on the bike, like an assault bike. iHacker316. What's the best way to program sprints around my heavy leg days and around my plyo athlete day? I don't know when I should do them. Thanks. Love the channel. From Ireland. I would say sprints would be something that you can do the day before a heavy leg day. Sprints could be done the morning of a plyo or athlete day, or the day of a hypertrophy day. That would be how I would set that up. And that is something that we will be adding specifically is like those speed workouts. Unrelated question from Nick Hatfield. I'm learning parabolic periodization. Do you use the same exercises for about 4 weeks, or do you change each week, or does it depend upon what the goal is? So I really, really, really like 4-week time slots for movements. I really like that. Okay. Cause I think it takes time for an athlete to adapt. And I'm even seeing now, as I get older, like I would change every 4 weeks. And I really believe that as I'm getting older, I'm starting to see that I actually think it might be longer. Like I actually think that sometimes I think 4 weeks you change too fast. And a lot of people want more change earlier, and it might not be beneficial. Sean, what's up? Boom. What's the dangers of developing? And thanks for that super chat. Sean just gave me $10. You guys can do the same thing by going into the super chat. And also, if you want to join the community and follow us for the private lives, you just have to click the button on every single video that says join. What are the dangers of developing a weighted pivoting machine? Think of how having that weighted from the floor to apply foot to the actual pivot foot. So, I would almost look at it like this, Sean, where I would have a band. Let's say I have a band like directly behind me and I'm punching forward and my pivot foot has something attached around my hip so that then the hip has to work more to pull forward while you're throwing a punch. Pivoting machine. Now, like turning that right knee or turning that right hip or turning that right foot. I think this, so I'd be interested to hear how boxing coaches teach this. In throwing, I think the best way to cue the rotation of the right foot, I genuinely think is like keep your foot stiff, keep your right foot stiff, and then turn your knee and turn your hip. Because if I'm turning my hip and I'm turning my knee and my ankle's stiff, my foot will turn because my hip controls my knee and my knee controls my ankle. Sometimes athletes that are shot putters need like the specific cue, turn your right foot, but I don't really use that ever. I usually will say like turn your right knee while your ankle stays stiff. That way they flex their ankle, they plantar flex their ankle, and then they rotate. And I'm interested, Sean, if that's similar to boxing. Do they say turn that right foot, or do they say, let everything rotate a little bit more? So the weight would be below the rear foot, and it would need to move the weight in the pivot while turning. So then I would attach that almost to the heel if I'm thinking about a cable, and you could almost have it on your heel here. Let's say the cable's behind me and this is my heel, and you wrap the cable around your heel and you just rotate this out, slow eccentric back in, rotate out. If I'm facing like my left, back out, back in, and that's going to train that individual like to feel that position. I think that there's a trade-off there. I think that you could I think that would be valuable. I would test it with some form of a cable with like a furniture slider. That would probably how I would test it. Furniture sliders, cable around the ankle or a band around the ankle. Figure out what makes that comfortable. I think that would be fun. Yeah. Do you think mastering Nordic curls can be beneficial for wrestling, and can I do them every day? So think about, hang on. Jason, we got to write something down for arm wrestling. We do need to do a video on arm wrestling. Okay, so think about, can you do them every day? I actually think you can usually, because your hamstrings are very, very freaking strong. I'm not saying that you can do them to failure every day, but if you did like one day, like 4 sets of 3, and then one day you do like 5 sets of 8, and then you do another day 4 sets of 3 easy. The benefit of it for wrestling is that think about hip extension is like hitting that sprawl. Okay, so it's hip extension, which is going to be key to executing a good Nordic curl, and then knee flexion. Okay, so knee flexion, especially as you would be pulling in, if you're flexing your knee and sprawling, Nordics are going to pay off. They're also going to pay off for propulsion, getting out of certain positions, hitting a switch would also be beneficial. So yes, I would say that they would be beneficial. Personally, I think turning your hips over is a better cue. So Harry's saying he thinks the hip, and that's how I think shot putters tend to turn their right side better, is from the hip. So we'll do something on arm wrestling in the future. Dane, I hope you're doing well. What do you think about the best books for leadership? I'm 16 and I want to lead my volleyball team. Also, how much should I be able to squat, clean, and snatch? David, what I would say is it depends on how tall you are. How tall are you, Zonka? That'd be super dependent upon your height, especially in a sport like volleyball. That's a tough one to just throw a number out. As far as leadership books, there's actually a book called Mindset from Carol Dweck. I like. It's tough because like I like, there's a book, there's a guy, I think his name's Chris Barnard. It's an old school book on like the functions of the executive. It's called The Functions of the Executive. And the book it takes so long to read, but it's literally like how you should lead people, how you should basically like positively affirm people. That's like something that I struggle with, is like being more affirming and communicating like, I like the job that you did. I think that's a good one. Dude, I honestly like watching Gary Vee videos. Like I think Gary Vee is a guy that's a really good positive leader. And I think that's another factor. It's like being clear. I think the biggest factors around leadership is like, know what you think needs to happen, know how to communicate that as clearly as possible, know how to be as positive as possible and provide positive affirmation, and then know how to handle like bad situations as calmly and as patiently as possible. I'm trying to look around my room right now. There's a book up there, Leadership, which was pretty good. That's like an old classic. I also think, dude, I mean, I'm diehard into Confucianism, and I think that there's a lot of books on Confucianism that can help you. Actually, this is probably one of the best. This book would be like the best textbook on leadership because it breaks down like every style of leadership. But I don't think that would necessarily be. I don't think that would necessarily be what you were looking for. That's like a really in-depth breakdown. I think the leadership stuff's interesting because it literally just comes back to like how well do you manage stress, how well do you solve problems, how well do you communicate with people, and do it over and over again. You know, do you have a structure? Do you have a plan? Do you have clarity? Do you have expectations? And for us, it's like you can see right here, right here. There we go. Those are like our key tenets. Do your job. Be attentive to details. Build and create for your team, and know the expectations. It's like follow those as well as you possibly can. Sean coming in. If it's too much, wait. Can you injure the knee from torque? I don't think you can. I really think that you would feel that before you're executing that. The growth mindset. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I also think like there's a guy, Dan Sullivan. He does a lot of cool leadership stuff. I think he does a good job. Hips initiate all punches. The ground delivers the last bit of torque. No one trains increasing the torque driving weight from the ground. Yeah, so that's where it's interesting, Sean, when I'm thinking about this. I think that fried rice boy, first of all, I think that's how did you get from, but let me finish with Sean's questions. I would be interested, Sean, that I would try it. I would absolutely try it. I would try it with a band first in the furniture slider, and then I would put the band around your hip and see which one you feel more. But keep the foot on a furniture slider. That would be my biggest argument. Fried rice boy, how did you get from religious studies and all the philosophy of strength training? How does it transfer to each other? I think how I got to that point was I had an innate interest in religions, an innate interest in philosophy and like thought and why we do certain things that we do, why we're motivated certain ways, why we value certain ethics and morals. And I wanted to learn sort of culturally why cultures are pretty similar, some a little bit different. And then why certain religions believe certain things historically, what happened to lead to those different beliefs. And then also, I think, partially my dad had some weird experience when he got hit by a car. That did have an impact on me having an interest in it. And then I really really like Confucianism and studying that and how to like slow things down. And I think that has a good transfer over to strength and conditioning because you have to be a good leader to get people to buy into your vision and to believe in athletes that they can accomplish certain things. Sometimes it's important for the coach to be able to buy into them more than they can. And I think that's how I got, that's why I think it does transfer quite a bit. I'm still looking at my books over there. There's some other really good books on leadership that maybe I should. Patrick Lencioni, he does a lot of like self-help type books. He has a book called The Motive that I really liked. But yeah. All right, just tuned in. Addressing the title. If running gets in the way of your lifting, then yes, it is killing your gains. The balancing act of the two is key. I would say mobility and nutrition are key. I think mobility is actually one of the biggest factors around running is that you have to be able to. I'm trying to get I just realized that my comments here were not updating from Instagram. I don't know why they weren't updating. I think you have to get it around I do believe that running can hinder mobility. It can bang up your ankles and it can hinder your hip mobility. And so you've got to make sure that if you want to maintain strength, like absolute strength, you want to be able to squat 440 for reps, like you've got to make sure you maintain that mobility for sure. Gotcha Racing. Let me go back and answer this question because I see that you were complaining. So today he starts preseason for folk style wrestling. He's got peak strength. How many days a week should I use it now in season? Right now I have practice 2 days a week. In season, I have 6 weeks. I have 6 a week. So I would lift when the season starts, when in-season starts, I would lift twice a week. Okay, and if you feel good, 3 days a week. You could do an athlete day on a third day. I would lift 2 days a week when the season first starts, because those first 2 weeks you're going to be adapting to the intensity of the training, and that can be really challenging. So that's what I would recommend. Tamid is saying, hi, Dane, I feel too stiff when I do compound lifts. Can I do weighted calisthenics and plyometrics and isometrics instead? You can. Is that the absolute best versus doing compound lifts? Probably not. If you're doing back squats or front squats or zombie squats or single leg squats or deadlifts or trap bar deadlifts or trap bar jumps or power cleans or snatches or bench press, like, you're going to get stronger faster and you're going to increase your mobility, and you're probably going to be able to execute calisthenics and plyometrics really well. I think you can do that, but I think you should still work on that mobility and being not as stiff. I think that would be a key factor behind that. Gotcha Racing, I hope that helped. Let's see here. I can now shoulder press 100 kilos for 8 reps and can now curl 60 for 10. How is my strength compared to other people in your gym? Dude, so we got this guy, Swole Kyle, we call him, okay? I really think we should do a video with him. He might be the strongest, like, from an innate strength perspective, okay? Just raw talent. He is very likely one of the strongest people that I've ever met. And I've, he might, I don't know if he's as strong naturally as someone like Joe Kovacs. He might be, I don't know. As far as like the absolute strength portions, I don't know. But as a person off the street, this kid just came into the gym and he's like, I'm interested in lifting. I'm interested in trying to improve specific stuff here. And this kid comes in. Okay. So this is my answer to PK4. He's saying that's strong. 100K press for 8 reps on the shoulders. That's great. That's a really good bench or shoulder press for 8 reps. That's great. That's fantastic. This dude, Swole Kyle, deadlifted, he's like 20. Deadlifted like 680 for a double. And I want to say he did double over, something like crazy. Back squat, did like 650 for like a set of 3. Back squatted 500 for an easy, like, it looked like he could have done 500 for 20 reps. And he's clean. He's just a normal dude. Like, never took anything. He's never been in a hardcore, like, fully blown, like, powerlifting program. I think so he ended up doing a powerlifting meet, and he back squatted, like, again, 680, something like that. Didn't hit 7 yet. Pulled just under 7. He wants to get like 750 is his goal for the next year. Benched like 440 or 450. His lockout's not great in the bench, but his leg strength and back strength is unbelievable for a kid that age, that young, with really, he might have wrestled a little bit. He doesn't have a huge athletic background. And I think that to answer PK4, that's great lifts. It's not amazing, but it's solid. Okay, so Fried Rice Boy is saying, how do you get throwers to stay over their right foot longer and not jump? I always end up losing height on the shot because I shift over too early. Fried Rice Boy's got me confused. I don't know who he is. Adam, thanks for that comment about the Peak Strength app. Peak Strength app is a must for athletes looking to get stronger. Absolutely. Gabe Young, are there any benefits that the GHD gives you that a back extension bench cannot? I think the GHD, you can go a little bit heavier. I think you can go heavier with the load, and I think that load ends up having a better return on your lower back than the back extension. I think they're both great. Going back to the shot stuff, get off your left leg faster, stay bent in the middle. Get off your left leg faster, stay bent in the middle. Let's get back up to some of these other questions. How do you think mastering Nordic curls can be? Do you think that mastering them? Yeah. Okay. Power lifted for, that's from Adam. Gotcha. So, yep, I got you. Nick Hatfield, I got you. Nabil, I got you. Bodybuilders are indeed strong. I still think we should do a whole live based around like my books for leadership, my books for training, my books for bodybuilding, my books for whatever. I think that would be a good lives. I think that would help as well. I'm just a high school thrower. Okay, that's cool, Fried Rice Boy. I wasn't sure. At first I thought you were somebody that we train online. That you've got great questions. I really like the questions you're bringing. That's why I actually thought that you were one of our online clients that is in the system, because you're knowledgeable about this stuff. So can we do 45 minutes to 90 minutes of zone 2 cardio? So Rambler is saying, Rambler, throw them in here. Throw those questions back in here. Can we do 45 to 90 minutes zone 2 cardio sessions 2 to 6 hours before or after an actual training session and rest days? Okay, so you're saying so Rambler's saying, let's say it's 9:00 in the morning. He wants to do 90 minutes on the bike where his heart rate gets to about 140 beats per minute. Okay, so 90 minutes on the bike, and then come back 6 hours later. So let's say it's 9:00. He wants to come back around 4:30, 5:00, and then do a strength training session, or vice versa. Okay, goal is morning, lower resting heart rate. Okay, so he wants to lower his resting heart rate. Can he do LSD work in the morning and then come back in the afternoon and do strength training? I actually believe that setup's great. I would just say, like, if you're doing a leg strength workout, maybe do the LSD stuff on the upper body day. I think if you did LSD work on like a upper body day one, or on your hypertrophy days in the morning, and then in the afternoon you did the strength session, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic. So he's saying walking, treadmill, or bike, and assault bike I would use. B Freeze, what's up, B Freeze? I want to know, do you guys have any questions for B Freeze around nutrition? Thanks for using that app, big guy. I think some of the stuff around discussing, I had a good discussion with one of our athletes, Sam Mattis, actually, about nutrition and the sauna earlier. And I think that question, so LSD work would be low heart rate, long, slow distance. That's for Fried Rice Boy. You would be doing, you wouldn't get your heart rate above like 144, 145. You try and keep it below that the entire time that you're doing that work, to try and develop that mitochondrial volume. And then when you would do high intensity interval work or sprint based work, you would improve that mitochondrial respiration. What Olympic lifts or plyometrics do you think transfer? I know that Sam Mattis and I were discussing the value of the sauna and nutrition for recovery and for longevity, and the role that plays in developing strength. I wanted to share that. What Olympic lifts, plyometrics do you think would transfer best to the pole vault? I would do a lot of single leg bounds, a lot of single leg stair jumps. I would do a split snatch or a snatch to a box, on a single leg snatch to a box. I think you guys have seen us do that. Power clean to a box. A lot of work into a hip lock position, a lot of drop dumbbell snatch into a hip lock position. I think I would try and do like one day, like heavier snatches. Think about the overhead position that a vaulter's in like all of the time, to really be stable there, but then also doing like athlete day and impulse day, very specific work to take off and then getting into the seat. And that's where I would get really creative with that stuff. Let's see. Joey Hodge, kinesiology undergrad here. Do you ever measure power using ASIS or similar machines? No. I need some context for interpreting power in watts or square foot per second. No, I mean, we just have a vertical jump mat. That's it. That's all we're using right now. Rambler's coming in. Whole food protein blend, beef protein, and Freeze in the past. Beef Freeze in the past is a diehard. This is interesting. He drinks camel milk. That's all he drinks is camel milk. The stair jumps, yet 3 is the way to go. Sam Mattis, could you do a cluster set, a Sam Mattis cluster set with 5x3, 5x1, or does it have to be? I call the Mattis cluster set the 5x2 and the 5x1 because that's what we use with him. Right now, they're doing a myo reps cluster. So myo reps is like you do a set of 10, you rest 30 seconds, and then you do 8 doubles at the same weight. And we're seeing some freaking insane work from that. And we're actually we're about 2 weeks out from that next program where we will start to use some overspeed work, some bands from the top. We're gonna test some things that I haven't used in the past a lot in my own training systems. I haven't used a lot of the reverse bands. I haven't used a lot of some setups of clusters. So I'm getting interesting. I'm trying to challenge myself with the throwers to, especially the post-collegiate throwers, to get a little bit more out of their strength sessions than they have in the past. So we're doing some real interesting stuff. Rambler wants to know about non-whey protein. So non-whey protein, here's some interesting stuff on non-whey. There's actually a decent amount of evidence now that if you can get a plant protein, and all the meat eaters, I eat meat, just so we're clear, so you don't have to hate me. Plant protein with a high level of potato protein blend, because potato protein is high in leucine, has a very positive impact on muscle protein synthesis. So as far as what we're talking about, yes, raw milk is fantastic. The camel milk is pretty tasty as well. So what we're talking about with the non-whey protein, it's one of the best substitutes is a plant protein with the potato protein. Some people don't handle the beef protein well when it's isolated. Just to throw that out there. Some people, I mean, I would just eat, like, if you don't like dairy, dude, you should be eating, like, get 200 grams of protein from chicken and beef. Like, that's so easy. And then you can get another 50 from something else. How do you feel about exercises that you build flexibility and strength at the same time? Pancake good mornings are tough. They're very tough. They're good. I like pause front squats. I like pause benches. I like pause back squats. I like pause single leg squats. I like pause dead hang pull-ups. Those are all movements that improve mobility and strength at the same time. I love them. Guys, you can't get that camel or raw milk in the U.S. Yes, you can. You can get camel milk in the U.S., and they're called dromedaries. You can get camel milk, dromedary, okay, Dromedary, dromedary, and you can get raw milk in the U.S. I want to say there's like 25 states that allow it. It's state regulated. It's not federally regulated. When you do long distance runs, do you wear a vest to carry your phone, water bottle, keys, etc.? So you know what's interesting? I get camel milk in Pennsylvania at an Amish farm. That's from Bee Freeze. Yep. I never wore a vest when I ran until this past weekend when I ran the 15.6, and I did wear a vest there. It was pouring rain. I had my phone in there, and then my phone started to glitch from the rain, and my Apple Watch actually, because I was so soaked. But I also that's where I stored most of my food for the run, and I will be doing that again this weekend. So I do like the vest. I was worried I wouldn't, but I liked it more than I thought I would. My name's Zach. I'm a discus thrower, but I've been thinking about joining football. So what should I do also? I'm 5'9", 170 pounds. Dude, if you're a thrower, we've got a guy, Will, who comes up from Malvern Prep, and kefir, I heard, was raw milk from the store. Kefir is not raw milk. Kefir is fermented milk. I think there's 27 strains of bacteria, and it's fermented. Now, going back to this for Zachary, if you're a discus thrower, if you want to play football, if you're a shot putter, and you're around 5'10" or more, if you want to throw well, okay, if you want to throw well, you have to weigh over 200 pounds. Get your bench over 225 to 250 plus. Do those 50 clap push-ups every single night till you're benching well over 250. So if you're 5'10", weigh over 200 plus pounds. You will throw the discus further, you will throw the shot further, and you will get freaking stronger. And you just squat more, clean more, snatch more, bench press more, do more pull-ups, and do plyometrics. Follow the throws version on peak strength, and that's going to get you to that next level. That's some simple, easy stuff that you guys can follow through with. Is your Apple Watch and Ultra becoming more valuable since you're training for the marathon? Which exercise program do you use on the Apple Watch Run, and do you monitor heart rate? Yes, I do monitor the zone training as well as I can. I I got to lock the phone the next time it's raining like the way it was. I just didn't lock it, and I wasn't paying attention because I was trying not to die from the 16 miles or 15 and a half miles. I will put long running or whatever, like outdoor run is what I use on the Apple Watch. And then I use peak strength marathon training right now for my strength training, which is great. It's actually, it's awesome. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any other questions. Let us know too in the comments what you guys want us to touch on in these lives. I think we could go into some training specific stuff. Maybe we can go into some books. Maybe we can go in background work to get a little bit more in depth to help you guys accomplish your goals. I'm going to head out to get ready for training. Any advice for a college athlete trying to walk onto a football team? 5'10", 177. He's a receiver. He wants to gain size and speed. I would look at it. Can you weigh 185 to 190? Okay, and be extremely twitchy. Focus on the single leg stuff. I would honestly, if you want to walk onto a football team, I would either get peak strength or get custom programming from us, and we can take those goals and be like, all right, this is where your clean is. This is where your snatch. This is where your jumps are. This is where your bench is. This is where your back squat is. We got to get these up. We know the benchmarks that you would have to work towards, and then that's going to help you with that accountability. If you understand you understand the benchmarks, you understand how many days a week you need to get in. Now that's going to be one of those key aspects to help you to achieve those goals, but you've got to hold yourself accountable. Yeah. Head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or Apple iOS Store. Comment with what you want us to cover. Do you want us to go into some of those specific books? Do you want us to go into programs or anything else, or even specific problems that you have in training? Until next time, peace.